All right, welcome to the review part 2. So I said we'd pick up on 14 and 15, and it says, given that cosine theta is 2 over 5 and is in the fourth quadrant, so what that tells me is if we're in the fourth quadrant, that cosine is positive, and it sure is. It says, enter a value in the box that correctly completes the sentence. Okay, so in the fourth quadrant, I'm only going to draw my fourth quadrant so I have some room. It says that cosine, I'm just going to draw a reference triangle. Cosine theta is 2 over 5. So cosine theta is 2 over 5. Well, what that tells me is, since cosine is adjacent to hypotenuse, that my hypotenuse is 5 and my adjacent is 2. And so what I'm going to need to do is use the Pythagorean theorem to find this missing side length. I'll call it y. And then once I know that missing side length, then I'll be able to calculate sine theta, because sine will be this side opposite over hypotenuse. All right, the next one, which expression is equivalent to secant theta? So just remember that sine theta is the same thing as, it's not the same thing. Sine theta is the reciprocal of cosecant theta. Cosine theta is the reciprocal of secant theta, and that tangent theta is the reciprocal of cotangent theta. And so the relationship here, if we're looking at secant theta, well, secant theta is 1 over cosine theta. Now, there may be more than one of these that's true, right? Because cosine is 1 over secant, and there may be a relationship between cosecant times tangent. So you would need to write out what cosecant is, and you'd also need to write out what tangent is, which tangent, just to refresh your memory, tangent is also sine over cosine. And you might also have to do something here and see if it's equivalent. So secant theta is 1 over cosine. Cotangent is 1 over tangent, and so on and so forth. So you're going to have to verify which of these are true. So you need to check more than one. Yeah, we did not do 16. We didn't do any of the graphing, which I really wish we had gotten to. It's one of my favorite parts of trig. I love sine, cosine, and tangent waves, but unfortunately we just didn't get to it. Okay, so number 25. This was the very last sections of notes that we did. It says, given that sine theta equals 12 over 13, where, now this is important. A lot of students want to just ignore this. It says where pi over 2 is smaller than theta is smaller than pi. That means that theta is in between pi over 2 and pi. And what that means on your unit circle, right, here's 0 pi, and here's half pi, and here's pi. And then this would be 3 pi over 2. And then this would be 2 pi. Okay, so what this is saying is that the quadrant we're working in is only from here to here. So we are only working in quadrant 2. All right, so it says, given that sine theta is 12 over 13, where we're in this quadrant, and sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so this would be 12 over 13, it says find the value of 2 theta. All right, so here's our theta. So to find the value of sine 2 theta, oh, I don't know if we did this. We may, I think we did though, yeah. So if we find the value of 2 theta, we're going to use this reference triangle. Sine, right, we don't have to find this third side, and so I want you guys to try it and see what we get. All right, the next one, number 26, it says to solve, I want to make sure I'm not off the paper or off the camera, there we go. Solve square root 3 secant x minus 2 equals 0, for 0 is less than or equal to x is less than 2 pi. So that means, again, if I was looking at my unit circle, this is only on one rotation of the unit circle. So what I need to do is isolate secant. So to do that, I will move the 2 over. So I get square root 3 secant x is equal to 2. And then I would divide both sides by square root 3. And so I'd have secant x is equal to 2 over square root 3. And then I'll use the idea from just a minute ago where I said, oh, it's not on there. It's on the previous page. Hold on. That secant is 1 over cosine. So I'm going to use that idea. So secant x is 1 over cosine x. And I know cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So that means that secant is hypotenuse over adjacent. All right, and so I want you guys to think about which 2 places on the unit circle would this be. All right, and the last one, number 27, to solve cosine squared x minus 3 cosine x minus 4 is equal to 0. For 0 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 2 pi. And so now, I don't think we actually did anything like this in the notes, so I'm going to explain it. So cosine squared x and then cosine x, this is like if I had something like x squared minus 3x minus 4 equals 0. So this is a quadratic. And so I'm just ignoring the fact that the function is cosine. I really don't care. I just see an x squared, and I see an x, and I see no values. So this has to be a quadratic. So I'm going to use this structure. If I factor this, I need something that multiplies to negative 4, and adds to negative 3. So something that will multiply to negative 4 and add to negative 3, like negative 4 times 1 and negative 4 plus 1. So this would factor as x minus 4 and x plus 1. So then I can, and these are equal to 0. Now I'm going to go back and replace x with cosine. So this is cosine minus 4, and then cosine plus 1 equals 0. And then I would solve each one. So cosine equals 4, and then cosine x, right? And then cosine x equals negative 1. And then what I would do is cosine inverse both sides, and then see which of these values, right, will give me the correct answer. So, and remember, you have to be between 0 and 2 pi. All right, guys, so I'm going to leave it right there. I know you're probably going to have a few questions. Let me just double check that there were none on the back. No, there's not. Now, the goal of this was not to do these for you, right? The goal of this was to give you ideas on how to do them and let you try them. And after you've tried them, if you need help with them, you need to ask me. And then we will be doing one more Edgelastic review to get us ready for the unit test. And then the unit test, after that, we'll be working a little bit with statistics, some maybe more interesting things, and getting ready for our final exam. All right, guys, have a good night.